Finally, Southland Tales is in theaters. Good God, man. Talk about the anticipation on this film. Howdy. I'm Jeff Goldsmith, senior editor for Creative Screenwriting Magazine, and yeah, go back, listen to the podcast. In 2006, we had writer-director Richard Kelly with us at Comic-Con on our panel, and this was right after the film had premiered at Cannes, and it wasn't really clear at that point when it was going to be released, but luckily it's in theaters now, so you could finally check it out. And this is a one-on-one interview with writer-director Richard Kelly, and we were really excited to make it happen because the film wasn't able to come into the screening series, but of course we love Richard Kelly, so we lucked out and still got a podcast. And you know, if you really want the full effect of the film, they've compiled the 3 comic books that Richard Kelly wrote as the prequels for this movie. So you could check them out. You could get it on Amazon. You could get it at your local bookshop. And it's definitely an interesting read. And what's so funny about it is that part of the focus of the film is that a porn star and an actor, a movie actor, have gotten together to collaborate to write a screenplay that may or may not trigger the end of the world, the apocalypse, etc. And what's so interesting is they break form in the comic from regular comic book pages to black and white screenplay pages to read the crazy screenplay that they've written. So it's a very interesting read without a doubt. It gives you a lot of the backstory that's needed to really get the full experience of the movie, so you should definitely check it out. If you dig this podcast, don't forget to check out Creative Screenwriting Magazine. We work our tails off to get you more interviews with screenwriters than pretty much any other outlet in the world. To find out what's in the latest issue of Creative Screenwriting Magazine, go to www.creativescreenwriting.com. You could check out all the info there, and remember, we're sold in Barnes & Noble and Borders bookshops in the United States, Canada, and most of Western Europe. But now, without further ado, let's jump right into our one-on-one interview with writer-director Richard Kelly to talk about his new film, Southland Tales. So when we last were with each other, it was at Comic-Con.
That's right, yeah.
Post Cannes about a year ago.
Uh-huh.
You've been through a lot since then. Tell us what you've been through, because I mean, I know you've been through the ringer on some of this stuff.
Well, it's been a long editorial. It's been a huge post-production on this film where we've been in post for almost 2 years, really.
Right.
And we've never stopped working. And I guess part of what's been difficult is, I guess, just managing, the perception that the film has problems, and then it's never getting released, and it's all that everyone's fighting, and it's just none of that has really been the truth. We've just been working really hard to make it better, and we got more money to add almost 100 visual effects shots, and so.
Let's talk about that experience, because very few of the filmmakers I've interviewed have been through that.
Yeah.
In which you did a cut that you were comfortable with for Cannes.
Well, I'd say I was comfortable with it, but I wasn't happy with it. It was difficult because we got nominated for the Palme d'Or, and the movie wasn't ready, and we ran out of time, we ran out of money, and I couldn't exactly go into Cannes telling everyone the movie wasn't finished because we were in competition, and everyone's saying, Richard, don't tell him that it's not finished yet, and it was recommended to me that I behave as though the film is finished, when in my mind I was like, man, these visual effects still need a lot of work, and still kind of felt like it was running too long, and then when Sony bought it after Cannes, they basically opened up an editing room, and we continued to work on it. And obviously they wanted it as short as possible. They weren't giving me an ultimatum, but it was also like I needed more visual effects money, so I knew the more time I cut, the better argument I would have to get the visual effects money.
What was your run time at Cannes?
It was 2 hours and 43 minutes, and it was long, and at the end of the day, though, it's 2:24 now, right. So it's only 19 minutes shorter. So it's not. I'm very relieved that it wasn't a situation where I was, no one put a gun to my head and said you have to get it under 2 hours. It was just like try to get it as tight as possible. So it was actually like it was long and it was stressful but it was worth it all the work in the end. It made the film better.
Question just for filmmakers around the world: did you learn a lesson about maybe going to a festival, a little early with a rough cut? Was that like the lesson learned from the experience?
Oh yeah, never again. We joke like let's take a rough cut of the box to Venice and let's tank that one too. Let's tank them all. No, I will never ever go to the film festival without a finished film ever again. It will be. You need to show a movie to several audiences and do your own private kind of little preview screenings and work out the kinks and do that's what you need to do. And we just went with what we had straight into the toughest audience in the world. So it was, in retrospect, it was maybe not a wise decision, but at the same time they nominated us for the Palme d'Or, and it was such a huge honor. You kind of can't turn that down. And
no, absolutely.
And so, in the end, the film is better off because of it. I mean that really with all my heart. And
we love you. You've been in the magazine before. You've been on our panel at Comic-Con. Not to dwell on the pain, but I just want to ask, put us in the room. I'd heard some people boo.
No,
is that a total lie?
Yeah, there was no booing.
Yeah,
there was an 8 a.m. press screening, which thank God I wasn't at, because I know it was like there was no one laughing. Everyone's hungover and jet lagged and cranky, and so there was no laughing at any of the comedy. And then I think there was a lot of people walking out, and maybe some kind of sneering or sighing,
right,
that kind of stuff. But there was no booing as far as I've heard. And at the night screening, the red carpet premiere, we got a standing ovation. And it wasn't like the best screening for the red carpet, because it was like, this kind of comedy doesn't necessarily play so well. It can,
because you've made a David Lynch film essentially that also has a lot of comedy in it. You're blending a lot of different tones.
Yeah. Well, it's made for a very specific audience. People who love science fiction and who love Philip K. Dick and maybe read Kurt Vonnegut or Thomas Pynchon or Raymond Chandler. Those authors are certainly a big influence on this, and I feel like, I hope that we're going to show it tonight at the premiere, the red carpet premiere at the ArcLight, and I can't wait to see this.
AFI film.
To see this movie on the big screen. It's been my dream to see this thing on the big screen at the ArcLight. And
last time this year, David Lynch's Inland Empire was out, so you're in the good slot.
Yeah, I'm really excited and really honored to be there, and the cast will all be there, so I'm really stoked.
Talk about coming back to the dream state again, just kind of the way you did in Donnie Darko. There's a lot of that, people's realities being bent, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
What continues to attract you to that?
Well, I feel like there's a subconscious, underworld that exists, and you talk about a dream state, and that's kind of all we have in terms of seeing into the unknown, I guess. And it's a subject of endless fascination, and you apply that idea to whether it's time travel or wireless electricity, some of these big science fiction concepts, and obviously the idea of a dream is going to blend into any of that. And we had a lot of fun in this movie in trying to iron out the science fiction of this alternative fuel concept called fluid karma, which is essentially wireless electricity, where like Wi-Fi internet, you can turn on your laptop anywhere in the Wi-Fi zone, and imagine a machine out in the ocean that uses the ocean to broadcast wireless electricity field all the way into Arizona, and these certain engines can just turn on and drive forever and don't need to be refueled. And that's the way they solve the energy crisis in the film, or at least try to.
No, it's a cool concept.
Yeah.
Talk about how hard it was to get Donnie Darko made, because you have a very original voice as a writer, and people aren't always sure what to do with that. So right out of college, when you wrote Donnie Darko, it was obviously something you wanted to do. How hard was it to get it finally made?
I got very lucky, and I met Drew Barrymore, and she took a chance on me, and
so she helped the funding and everything else come together.
Yeah, and she was a big part in ensuring that happened, and I've been very, very fortunate, and I owe her a lot in terms of helping to give me a career. And
how was it you met her, dare I ask?
I met her through my agent. We had the same agent. Nancy Juvonen deserves a lot of credit as well. Her partner, Nancy Juvonen, read the script and gave it to Drew, and it was really Nancy who pushed for the meeting to happen. And Nancy was, a producer on the film, along with Sean McKittrick, and she's a great friend, and I owe them a lot. I really do.
You write original things that sometimes might never be produced. I wrote an article for Empire Magazine about your script, Bessie the Cow Who Could Talk.
Yeah, it's called Bessie, and it is about a genetically engineered cow who can walk upright and is capable of speech. And there are other side effects that I won't get into.
To
that mutation, that's part of the twist of the movie. But I hope to make that movie at some point. I need to go back and rewrite the script. It's an old script, and it needs a rewrite.
Why do you think that? I mean, the draft that I read was fantastic.
No, I know. It's. I need to update some things, and I need to figure out what direction I want to go with it.
But so just on its base level, it's a cow that can walk and talk.
Yeah,
that's not like what everybody's looking for. But you wrote it not really for the marketplace, it seems, but for yourself.
Yeah, it's like kind of like Frankenstein. It's like it's a monster movie, but it's also you think about King Kong. You loved King Kong, and I want the audience to love Bessie, and I want them to care about her, even though she is somewhat unpleasant in the things that she does.
Bessie's a good cow, from my memory. Bessie's not your friend.
It's also figuring out how to do the cow so it's cool and believable looking. It's realistic,
right? Which is really expensive. So I mean, did you consider that when you wrote it?
Oh yeah, this is expensive and this is going to be impossible to get made. But what's new? Everything I write is like that.
Well, so I mean, but some writers would sit down and say, "I'm not going to write the script because this was never going to get made." For you, was it just like something that was in your mind that you wanted to get out of there?
Yeah, I really wrote a lot in my 20s to sort of get a bunch of it out of my system, I think, before I lost my nerve. And
wait, you've lost your nerve now?
Well, maybe. We'll see. You know, no, I still have my nerve. I think I like to think that The Box is going to be my first grown-up movie, that I'm going to, you know, I felt like I've been, and I'm proud of this, but I felt like I've taken a lot of risks and everything, but sometimes you got to be careful, and if you take one risk too many and then they don't pay off, you can find yourself, you know, selling incense in Venice Beach. So I might end up like the neo-Marxists.
Yeah, that's right, in Southland Tales.
Yeah.
Because they live in Venice.
Yep, selling guns out of an ice cream truck.
Which is not a bad thing. Then give us a pitch of The Box. Tell us what The Box is.
The Box is a psychological thriller, and it is based on Richard Matheson's short story called Button, Button that was originally published, I believe, in Playboy in 1970. It's a 6-page short story, and then it was remade into a Twilight Zone episode in 1986. And I've taken the short story and I've tried to expand it into a feature film, and I'm really excited to try to do a mainstream.
I'm going
thriller.
Right here. Was this the Twilight Zone in the 80s when they deliver the box to us and any dream will come true?
Well, there's it's called the Button Unit, and there's a glass dome and a key that unlocks the lid, and if you push the button, somewhere in the world you do not know will die in exchange for a large sum of money. And I just thought it was this great premise.
And it's a time limit, right? You have
the offer has a time limit, and then the Button Unit will be reprogrammed, and the offer will be made to someone else. So it's I thought it was really incredibly fascinating, and I've been obsessed with it for years. And I think I figured out how to crack it, and I've been constantly over the past month rewriting the script, and now I'm. The Writers Guild is taking my laptop away and putting it under lock and key.
That's right. The strike's coming. We're a day or two away. I mean, you have to technically register your draft pre-strike to prove that you haven't written anything new on it by the time the strike's over. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, I've literally been busting my ass doing a ton of notes and rewriting over the past month. And
notes from whom?
Notes from the studio we are in advanced discussions with to distribute it, and from my crew, and from me, and from everyone. Everyone.
It's not officially set up or a go project. Right?
We start shooting on the 17th. Yeah. It's sets are being built. It's Cameron Diaz, James Marsden, and Frank Langella.
Sorry, I didn't realize
that's all right. Yeah, it's all. I get on a plane Sunday night and I head back to Boston, and we start shooting on the 17th.
Wow, you have a tough challenge though, because the WGA will go after you if as a writer-director you change something on the set from the script.
I know.
They consider that to be an edit, which I think is really
a
tough one to adhere to.
I'm also DGA, and it's a touchy situation, and I literally the script is now like locked and ready. I've done we just did a lot of work on it very recently, and it's a touchy, scary situation, and I just want it resolved, and I don't want people to lose their jobs, and
No, sure.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Talk about the influence of Philip K. Dick on your work. I mean, in this movie, there's a cop that shoots someone and then says, "Flow My Tears." That's the name of a Philip K. Dick book, "Flow My Tears," the policeman said. Talk about Philip K. Dick's influence on your work, because, I mean, he's a character in your movie for all general purposes.
You know, he's a huge influence, and obviously that line, "Flow My Tears," is a reference to "Flow My Tears," the policeman said, and Tavener, the last name of Sean William Scott's characters, is a nod to the hero of that book, and I think Philip K. Dick is just a profound influence on any science fiction that's been done in the past 20 years, really, and he broke new ground, and I think people constantly are going back to his work and turning it. And so obviously I feel like I'm just paying tribute to him, because there's a lot of, I feel like I was influenced by his spirit a lot.
Southland Tales was a crazy concept. We talked about it in our Comic-Con podcast. Talk about it again. Not only did you write... How long was your shooting draft?
For Southland Tales?
Yeah.
Oh, it was tough, because to get the movie bonded, we had to really cut the script down to something like 90 pages, and then I did improvisation to make up for what I had to cut.
Okay.
It was a complete complicated, difficult situation where the script we had to shoot from was incomplete.
Interesting.
And we were using improvisation with the actors to fill in what we wanted that was missing.
But you also wrote 300 pages of a prequel to it, which is parts 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I find so interesting for our listeners that haven't seen the film yet is that, you know, your protagonists, a porn star and a movie star, are writing a script called The Power.
Yeah.
And at least in the prequels, you know, of your comic, everybody's really obsessed with their scripts because it may or may not be predicting the end of the world.
Yeah.
And they get into that a bit more in the movie, but I mean, I was impressed in your comic that there's screenplay pages that break out of the graphic art. So I mean, talk about writing a comic first that is all of your backstory and then a movie that was going to follow. When did you get that idea?
Oh, you know, someone approached me when we were in early prep about doing a comic book tie-in, and then I had this crazy idea, well, I'll just do a prequel. And I'll make the movie chapters 4, 5, and 6, and I'll make the prequel 1, 2, and 3. And it was like I had opened Pandora's box, you know, no pun intended, but it was like I bit off more than I could chew, and it was like figuring out how to not choke. And that's been my life for the past 2 years.
Well, I mean,
but it was a lot of work. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And Brett Welldilly is an amazing artist, and
it's great.
I handed over these screenplays, and he adapted them into comic book panels and his illustrations. And I did the second 2 books when we were editing the film. So
it's tough though, because I mean, some of it I knew you were never going to be able to get away from because it was such crucial backstory information.
Yeah.
That talk about your decision to then take those graphic frames and open your movie with a montage of actually comic book art.
Yeah, well, there's the Doomsday Scenario interface at the beginning of the film after the Abilene nuclear bomb, and it takes you on a guided visual tour over what has happened to America over the 3-year time span, and then it introduces you to Boxer Santeros and how he was kidnapped and brought out to the desert and the circumstances of the election and his ties to the Republican campaign. And it gives you a quick 2.5-minute primer of what you need to know from the first 3 chapters before you engage and begin in chapter 4. So that was something that we created this summer with a really talented artist named Chris Byall, who...
so it was something post-Cannes, basically.
Oh, yeah, that was not at Cannes at all, and that was...
Do you think that that's what hurt the people in the audience? Was that because it's a screenwriting thing, and they didn't have the backstory complete to understand what was going on in the full story.
Yeah, we certainly needed the prologue to help set the story up, and before you were just jumping right into California, and you didn't have the backstory that you needed in terms of Boxer and everything that happened out in the desert. All the crazy stuff that happened out in the desert is chapters 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
So,
but then your protagonist, you know, for some of it, you know, Fortunio,
yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
You know, I love the opening shot of the comic book. He's playing video poker with somebody in Iraq,
or in Syria, yeah,
in Syria, and like their base is bombed, and he's then trying to get his money back, you know, from the online game because he would have lost. I mean, was there ever a thought as the frames were coming in from the comic to put some of that in the film, or was it just too late?
In terms of filming it,
yeah,
you know, it was too late. It was, you know, the prequel saga is a whole nother film in and of itself, really.
Absolutely.
And there are some parts of the prequel saga that we did film, like Sherry O'Terry's stand-up routine in Chapter 3.
Right.
And she's at O'Brien's. We have a whole long stand-up comedy thing that she did that we filmed. And there's little bits and pieces from the prequel saga that do exist in that have been filmed.
That's cool.
That were part of the stuff either trimmed out of the film or so it's a lot of material.
there was really no limit to it though, because what was interesting is not only is it a film with a normal narrative, you have comic book stuff, you also break into a music video at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, so music really informed your movie in different ways. Could you talk about your decision to do a music video in the middle of the movie? Well, and did you write the words? Like, did you write the music?
No. That's The Killers, and that's all these things that I've done. And Justin Timberlake, he lip syncs to it, and it's actually a hallucination that he has when he injects this drug into his neck. And the people who are on the drug can communicate kind of in their dreams and telepathically. And so the musical number is actually a telepathic communication that he has with Sean William Scott's character, who is the guy who accidentally disfigured him in Iraq with a grenade on accident, a friendly fire incident. So it's almost, and that song is what they were listening to on their iPod when they helicoptered into Fallujah and the drugs started to take hold. So it's sort of like...
But some of that was peppered through the comics. Some of that was peppered.
Yeah. If you read the books, that's a lot. All that is a lot clearer.
Gotcha.
And it's a telepathic. It's a musical number, but it's really a telepathic communication.
I mean, it works. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, you also have a chapter titled "Wave of Mutilation," which is a Pixies song. Yeah. 3 Days, which is Jane's Addiction. Were those like songs you would listen to as you write? Is that how they ended up in there?
Yeah, and I've spent a long time deciding on the music for the film, and I felt like the Pixies and the steel guitar of the surf rock version of Wave Mutilation, it felt like an LA song, and 3 Days feels like a Venice Beach song, and the grungy guitar and Perry Farrell's lyrics, and so it was music that felt like LA to me.
Ensemble writing. You have a huge cast, a lot of characters. What did you do as a writer to keep everybody's voice kind of unique?
I have the 50-50 philosophy. I bring 50% of the character to the table, and then I ask the actor to go and bring 50% of their own decision-making into it, and give them homework to do, and let them do improv.
So what was something that somebody brought that really surprised you?
Every actor surprised me. They all came up with things. They all did improvisation. A lot of physical qualities, convincing John Lovitz to dye his hair blonde. And he came up to me on set. He's like, "Rich, I'm playing my dad. I figured it out. It's my dad."
His dad's a cold-hearted killer. That's good to know.
I think his dad maybe had trouble showing emotion. Was very pent up or something. But Lovitz is hilarious, and and everyone came to me with things, and Amy Poehler and Wood Harris is the Sonny and Cher of the neo-Marxist underground, and their vicious marital dispute that ends tragically was great fun to shoot.
That was improv. Yeah. Is there ever a time where an actor really wants something that's going to take away from your story that you got to lock it down, because otherwise too much improv can unravel your story?
Yeah, too. I mean, I think we shot what was scripted, and then we started with the improv immediately after that. And there were certain scenes that we had to we didn't know if we would have time to shoot, but we found the time, and then we improv'd them.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much were able to get away with everything. At one point, there's a car commercial that is literally CGI car sex.
Yeah, vehicular intercourse.
I mean, but for real, for our listeners around the world, there is a CGI penis entering a CGI exhaust pipe.
Vagina.
Yes. Where was that coming from? And I mean, was it just like no limits? Let's just go crazy.
Well, I actually pitched that to BMW as a BMW short with Tony Scott, and they told me that I was insane, and I said,
"You really pitched that to them?"
Yeah, as one of the BMW shorts that we were, and they were like, "You're crazy, you can't do that." And I thought it would be hilarious to. Where
did you think it would air? Would it just be an internet thing?
I thought maybe it would be an internet thing and a European thing, maybe, but I need to be in therapy.
Have you shown that to Tony Scott?
I don't think he's seen it yet. No, he's prepping his movie.
You got to call him up and say you have proof of concept.
I know.
Talk about your writing habit. When you write, how important is outlining, especially on something this complicated, or even the box?
Outlining is a headache for me because I'm lazy and it's all rattling around in my head, and I just like to knock out that first draft. That first draft is the most painful thing because it's in your head and you got to get it out. And once you get it out of your system, then it's the rewriting process that goes very, very meticulous and time consuming. And I constantly rewrite, and I always think the script can get better and better and better. And I use my crew, my production designer, Alec Hammond, and my producing partner, Sean McKittrick, and we all have these long think tank meetings. And I actually, a lot of people complain about studio notes, but I think they're inevitable, and there's actually some good ideas there. You got to weed out the good ideas from the bad and make the best of studio notes and figure out how to improve your script, is what I found.
How many hours a day do you write when you write?
Oh, I'm good for maybe, it depends on if I'm on deadline and there's a big writer's strike looming. Then I'm like 6-7 hours a day.
And if there's not a strike looming?
3-4 hours.
Okay. All right. Character versus narrative. That's always a tough thing to do. And your films have actually really rich both characters and narrative. I mean, to the point that your narrative is like explosive. How tough is that for you to write? I mean, like, how do you balance those two kind of sometimes battling elements?
I try to make them go hand in hand and have them be interrelated, and you got to do it simultaneously. You got to advance the plot and learn more about the character at the same time. And if they're interconnected, I think that makes your story stronger, because you never want to stop the story just to learn about what happened, someone's tragic past. You don't ever want to stop the story in its tracks. It's like, that's the challenge, is to make them work together.
Sure. What do you do to battle writer's block if you get it?
I go out and I talk to people, and I go try to have some fun, and then I solve my dilemma when I'm like listening to music or I'm out driving or something. I just get out of the house, that's what I do.
That makes sense. All right, gotta ask, because it's so hard to make a movie. Saw a lot of Red Stripe, a lot of Budweiser.
A lot of product placement, yeah.
A lot of product placement. How's that work, and how much did it add to the movie? And by the way, I love Red Stripes. So
yeah, we chose a lot of product placement in this movie, and we wanted to make it part of the aesthetic and part of it's a big piece of pop art, and I love the way Andy Warhol used the Campbell soup cans, and I think graphic design and logos are really kind of attractive and sexy, and I like looking at them, and we're surrounded by them in life, and I think I try to use the product placement in this film in a way that's comedic and satirical and also kind of just aesthetically pleasing, I guess.
How much did it add to your budget?
Not too much. And they give you free. Panasonic gave us a bunch of flat screens and laptops. And
you got a lot of beer.
I got a lot of free Budweiser, which was great. And
Red Stripe.
Hustler gave us a lot of porno.
Yeah, that's right, because Hustler had their logo on a tank.
Well, yeah, the idea is that the military is run so thin and they're out of money that their corporations are sponsoring the war effort and helping to contribute to the war effort. And there's a big Hustler, decal plastered on the side of a tank.
One of the things that threw me off a little was the girl from US Ident, which is kind of the monitoring Big Brother agency. When she finally goes out and meets Boxer, she's basically holding a gun to her head, saying that she wants to blow him. That's basically the scene.
Yeah.
How did she end up in that position? Was she programmed to do something?
That role, that's the character of Starla von Luft, and she's played by an actress named Michelle Durrett, who is a brilliant comedic actress who is a part of a comedy troupe called The Mechanicals. And Michelle is awesome, and that character is obsessed with Boxer. She's like a stalker fan, and she also has been reading The Power. She's downloaded The Power. The script that Krista wrote is being passed along and whispered about as being this document that's going to forecast the apocalypse.
Right.
She works at US Ident and has access to all the phone numbers and the information, and she ends up contacting him, and she becomes possessed, and she has information, and she becomes convinced that she's Muriel Fox, the character in the script that is supposed to be played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. And she comes after him on the beach, and she might almost kill him at some point. She becomes dangerous and unhinged, and she goes off the deep end.
Yeah.
And she's also looking at surveillance footage of LAX bathrooms all day, and it pushes her over the edge.
Would anyone? Well, but at the end of the day, the screenplay that was going to predict the end of the world, kind of does. It kind of does. I mean, where do you sit with that? Because I mean, really, Boxer wasn't as key as the duality of the two characters who are told to be brothers, but really are the same two souls in time.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a good thing, a glimmer of hope that the world doesn't end, or?
Well, do you think the world doesn't end at the end?
I don't know.
It's left.
It's left open. I mean, it seemed to me like.
Did you notice the tidal wave?
No.
The big, but there's the big shot of Santa Monica Pier at the end where Justin is dancing with the girls in the party at the end. There's an establishing shot of the pier, and there's a big black wave building.
Interesting. Okay.
It looks as though everyone's going to get wiped out, and all that's left is the suspended ice cream truck, and then there's a gateway that's opened up.
Interesting.
And so take from that if you will, but so
maybe a screenplay can predict the end of the world.
Who knows? I don't think it's going to happen that way, but I think we're just going to drown ourselves eventually. But that's the fun of the movie, is it happens immediately and quick and painless. It gets shut down, and then maybe we're all saved by our friend Sean William Scott.
Well, cool, man. Well, I can't wait to see what you do next, and hopefully we'll talk to you again on The Box.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time.
Okay.
And that's how the Q&A went down. Thanks again to writer-director Richard Kelly for spending time with us to talk about his latest film, Southland Tales. And who knows, maybe one of these days he'll make his film Bessie, about the cow who could talk, and we'll get him in the screening series for that. And man, I hope he makes that film, because that script is crazy, but crazy in a good way. If you dug this episode of the podcast in general, consider tossing a virtual tip into our PayPal virtual tip jar by visiting www.creativescreenwritingmagazine.blogspot.com and look for the PayPal icon. Your tips are appreciated and definitely help out with equipment, hard drives, and all the other stuff we need to keep this podcast running. Of course, feel free to check out my blog, which I even managed to update on the rare occasion that I have time to do so by visiting www.jeffgoldsmith.blogspot.com. You can also always feel free to drop me a line by emailing me at yo.goldsmith@gmail.com, and I'll do my darndest to get back to you as soon as I can. Of course, don't forget to click that subscribe button in iTunes or your podcatching software, because that's how episodes are downloaded automatically every time you click refresh. And if you have a minute, feel free to leave us positive feedback in the iTunes Music Store or at podcastalley.com. I'm Jeff Goldsmith, Senior Editor for Creative Screenwriting Magazine, thanking you again for tuning in and telling you to stay out of trouble. Till next week.